I'm going to call the Saturday, January 25th, 2025 meeting of the Essex Junction City Council to order. Are there any agenda additions or changes?
None.
None? Great. The next step would be our public to be heard section. We are going to move that to our Q&A. There'll be a lengthy Q&A after the presentation where we'll encourage folks to ask questions about the budget or really take comments or questions on any topic related to the city at that point, if that's all right. So at this point, we're going to move right into the discussion of the proposed FY26 general fund and capital budgets. Thank you all very much for coming. I hope the food was satisfactory. It's a beautiful day, but it's a lot warmer in here. And thank you for being here.
All right, thank you, Raj. So I'm Steve Eustace, the moderator, and I'm going to moderate the meeting for today. And so a little bit out of normal city council meeting. And so I'm going to start by introducing Raj, and he'll introduce the rest of the table.
My name is Raj Chawla. I'm the president of the city council. Again, thanks for coming. I think councilors can introduce themselves as we go down the line.
I'm Amber Tebow. I'm the vice president.
Tim Miller and clerk.
Elaine Haney.
Marcus Serta.
I can introduce Regina Mahoney, city manager.
And Jess Morris, finance director.
All right, thank you for that. And next thing, what we're going to do is we're going to go over the budget. There'll be a presentation, and then after that, we'll have the Q&A and just a couple housekeeping things as well. There's restrooms are down the hall that way if anybody needs that, and that we'll want to have people, when they're going to speak later on, to come up and identify themselves per usual. So you can kick off the presentation.
All right, awesome. Thank you, everybody. So here we are talking about the FY26 general fund budget for the city of Essex Junction. So we are hosting this meeting at a point in time that's an opportunity to provide feedback and when the budget can still be adjusted by the council before it is finalized for what's voted on. So just want to make that clear. So what you see today may not necessarily be the exact same thing once you get your, once you vote. So appreciate everybody being here, and definitely an opportunity to ask questions or provide some input. So this is the FY26 budget as compared to the FY25 budget. It is a 3% increase. The council gave this goal to myself and the staff last spring, and we are very happy to be able to have met that goal. It's a little bit tight to get to this goal, but we feel pretty confident with it. So a 3% increase in the general fund is resulting in a 2.5% increase in the actual tax rate and tax impact. So what that looks like for a home of $280,000 assessed value is a $69 change from FY25 to FY26. The other thing the council asked us to do is really be able to take a look also at what the utility fee impact is going to look like for folks. So what you see here is that 2.5% increase on the tax rate, and then also what we are projecting to see as an increase on the utility side rate. So important to know that the utility rates are continued to be worked on through the spring, and the council approves that later on. So it is not something that's voted on directly by the voters, and we finalize it later in the spring because the more data we have of the current year, the better we can get that narrowed down. So that is the 14, almost 15% increase going on in the utility rate. The third line here is the other thing that's happening with the proposed new stormwater utility. So essentially, in your FY25 budget, we are funding the stormwater program in the general fund. We are also funding that program at a much lower rate than what we actually need that program to be. Chelsea Mandigo is here today. She is your stormwater. She is your water quality superintendent, and she runs the wastewater treatment facility as well as stormwater, which used to be her job before she took on wastewater treatment facility. So we have been in a need for a stormwater coordinator, and we are also in
Recording in
need for capital
progress.
planning for stormwater projects as well in order to be able to meet our stormwater permit requirements. So the concept is we are setting that up as a utility so that all properties in the city take on that burden as opposed to just your taxpayers. So all collectively, what that looks like is 8.6% increase and about $250 on an average user, because those fees are calculated a little bit differently. That's the bigger picture, just to keep in mind as we're going forward here. So just a summary of where our revenue comes from. The majority does come from residential property taxes. That's the green piece of the pie. Business property taxes, apologies for the typo. You also see that typo on the table, so sorry about that. Miscellaneous revenues, that's the red, that's community development fees, clerk's fees, a couple of other places where that comes from. And then also the blue piece of the pie is where you see the Global Foundries property tax. On the expenditure side, a lot more pieces of the pie, so a little near impossible to sort through here. But essentially, the light green piece of the pie, that's Health and Human Services. That's where you will see the police department, as well as Essex Rescue. And the police department, just to remind folks, is we are grateful to have the Essex Police Department still combined service with the town. Then streets is the second largest budget there in yellow. Okay, so I am going to hand it over to Raj now to give a little bit more insight into each of the individual budgets.
Thank you. So overall highlights from this year's proposed budget. We are looking at a 4% salary and wage increase this year for our employees. We have allocated or proposed an additional $50,000 allocation for the Public Works Department to address some vacancies and some issues there with making sure we're fully staffed up. As many of you have heard, health insurance has gone up. The city is once again contending with a very large increase, 17.9%. And we've recently negotiated a new association contract where there's a slight increase in our employee contribution towards healthcare, this contract. The administration budget is, as shown, $735,000. We've proposed sharing an equity policy advisor with other communities through the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. We are still investigating that. The original proposal was for 5 communities to share this role. 3 of those communities have put forward their proposed budgets and not including this. So we are trying to see what that means for us, see if we still continue with that. So that number may change, it may come out altogether. Legislative budget is as shown, about $99,000. And the clerk budget shows an increase. There's a $15,000 expense that was added to that budget. There is grant revenue that will offset that, but it has to be shown as an expense. Without that grant revenue, without this washing through the city clerk's budget, it actually is down a percentage. Finance, is about $622,000. Finance is our finance department, but is also, this budget is where we see most of our city software needs, insurances, they all flow through this budget. We've had our IT budget's about $212,000. We've been exploring, I think we're in year 3 of this contract, year 3 of this, 2.5. At any rate, we've been able to evolve this to keep that budget rather steady. Assessing is shared with the town right now. We are in the midst of a reappraisal. That service, as I mentioned, is being provided by the town, and there's a $6,500 increase there. Community Development Department, there was an increase of $11,000 over last year, largely for matching grant funds. Often when we get these grants, we need to provide some portion of it as well, and that's what we're looking at there. Economic Development, we do have a different Economic Development Fund that is a penny on the tax rate. We'll talk about it in a little while. This is different. This budget is set at 0. We will be talking over the next year or two about where this goes, but right now it's on the books, but it's at 0. Higher call volume and payroll increases are a majority of the increases in the fire department. The Health and Human Services includes our contract with Essex Police and Essex Rescue. And that's where those increases are coming from. We did approve a special assessment request from Green Mountain Transit, as listed here. As many of you might have heard, Green Mountain Transit's contending with some service and route changes and potential cuts, and they came looking for a special assessment to help them through that process. Streets budget is one of the larger portions of our budget at $1.6 million. As you see, payroll expenses have reduced a little bit, and we've allocated some of the work the Public Works crews do in the water and sanitation areas more accurately this year and moving forward. Stormwater management we'll talk about a little more, I think, when we talk about a proposed stormwater utility. That is going to be moved into, we're proposing moving that into an enterprise fund. Oh, no, wait, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
proposed, yeah. The language around, I want to make sure I'm accurate, excuse me. And an enterprise fund, which means it's a portion of the budget where the revenues are paid by users of those services. Brownell, most of the costs and changes in the Brownell Library budget are changes in cleaning and repair costs for the building. Staff have done a lot of work looking at what the actual costs for some of the maintenance and cleaning in our buildings is, and what it should be, and some of the changes in that budget are part of that. EGRP is another large portion at $1.1 million. EGRP has been working hard to identify costs associated with their enterprise funds and how they relate to their general fund budget. What that means is shifting some of the costs from some of their enterprise funds might include the preschool or user-based services they provide, childcare, after school, that sort of thing. So they've been more careful and intentional about how they're applying their general administrative costs to those programs so that they're paid for more out of the user fees than the general fund. So a lot of the changes there are from that. Again, around the buildings budget, cleaning and professional services and maintenance, the buildings budget's seen a small increase of $12,000. Overall, our annual debt is reducing as we pay it off. This year, we'll look at a $16,000 reduction. We have kept with our policy of funding our capital needs and an increased amount every year. This year, we're increasing the amount of our annual allocation for capital by about $84,000. And we are proposing in this budget shifting $110,000 to our fund balance. The fund balance is basically our rainy day fund. Right now, our fund balance is about 7% of our overall budget, which is slightly less than 1 month's of expenses in a savings account. So happy to talk about this more during the Q&A, but our proposal would be to start beefing that savings account up, beefing that general fund up, fund balance up, to better protect us from anything unexpected that might happen. A number of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we had a culvert washout on Densmore Drive, which was basically closed that road down for almost 2 years, was exceedingly expensive, and we needed to front a lot of the costs of that repair prior to a FEMA reimbursement, and that's the sort of thing that this would be used for. And in general, we've seen quite a bit of efficiencies and cost reductions by aligning contracts and other services across multiple departments, looking at our Burlington Telecom contract, for instance, and things like that.
So just going to point out before I move on, we're going to have a fun quiz at the end. Maybe it's a poll, maybe it's a quiz, depending how you want to think about it. The proposed addition to increase the unassigned fund balance, just keep that in the back of your mind because it's on the quiz.
And I will add to that, the reason we're curious is because that amount equals 1% of the tax increase. So one thing we're curious for folks about is that amount, $110,000, takes our proposed tax increase from 1.5% to 2.5%. So before this was proposed on Wednesday night to beef up our rainy day fund, we were actually looking at a 1.5% tax increase this year. So we are curious what people think about that. Local option tax went into effect, this might be the third year, entering our third year. Brings in about $900,000. We have a policy, an approved policy that allocates 25% of that income towards sidewalk repair and maintenance, and the remainder goes to capital projects, and we have a well thought out, well planned out, multi-year capital plan. Brings in an average, as I said, about $900,000. We do have a balance now, which is why you see the numbers don't necessarily match, but this year we expect $200,000 to go towards that work on sidewalks we mentioned, and about $800,000 to go to the capital fund. Economic development, that's the penny we pay on the tax rate that goes to economic development. That's at about $870,000. That has been allocated to about $109,000 for finishing up small pieces of the Crescent Connector that we're responsible for, bike racks, bike boxes, and charging stations. $750,000 match to redesign and reimagine the Amtrak train station on Railroad Street. And this says $273,000 for Main Street Park. The number is actually closer to $40,000. That work needs to be adjusted and changed at a future meeting. We've changed how we're funding that park. Most of it is going to be grant money. Our matching grant for that is actually $40,000. We have a number of capital projects. We actually have a five-year capital plan. I was going to say 10, excuse me. We definitely have projects on that list that go beyond the 5-year plan. Upcoming for the next number of years, next year specifically, are 1 and 2, sidewalk and roadway improvements from West Street to Susie Wilson, and a water line improvement in that same general area. As you can see, there's a number listed up here, including fire department radio replacements. A lot of water line work to come in the next years in the community. So that's a small look at a long list of planned projects.
And I'll just point out on this, these are subject to change with each year that the council looks at the budget, as well as when we start to work on each individual one of these projects, depending on how costs are coming in and and how that works. So certainly subject to change. Okay, so the other big thing that we did this last year with lots of your help is we put together a strategic action plan for the city. So now once we've got the city in place, got our legs underneath us, put the strategic plan together to try to help us figure out what's next. So with that, the staff also put together annual work plans associated with these 6 pillars that came out of that strategic action plan that the community wants to focus on. So just quickly, the pillars are housing and urban design, public services and facilities. Pillar 3 is economic and business development. So that's the one where that budget's zeroed out now, doesn't feel great. Hopefully we can get back to a place where we've got a program there. Pillar 4 is transportation and connectivity. Pillar 5, environmental stewardship. And Pillar 6 is community engagement and decision-making. So the staff looked at these 6 pillars and went through and defined all of the work that we already have ongoing, as well as what we're hoping to achieve in the future. And so I've highlighted some of those intended and planned work products for FY26. I will say this is sort of the first time of kind of putting things down on paper in this way, and so we may be a little ambitious in terms of what can get accomplished here. But so for the most part, in the admin team, we're really looking forward to continuing to implement this whole new system that we've got in place. So this strategic plan and the annual work plans. The idea is that staff will be able to report out consistently throughout the year on where we are with the work plan products, as well as some of the metrics that we've got defined in there. And in the springtime, we have a communication with the council so that they can set some priorities for the following fiscal year. So we get some priorities set in the spring. We go to work on developing the budget for the next fiscal year. And then at this time of year, we're explaining what we think is coming up in the next year for folks. Continuing to update ordinances and policies as we are a city, and at the very least, getting village switched over to city, but looking at those along the way in terms of what they're doing. Communications, developing a process for determining new committees if we need them. Trying to work through incorporating youth members on boards. Excited to say that the council appointed 2 youth to the new Recreation Advisory Committee, so that's exciting. We will be rebranding, changing over the logo from village to city. Human resources, continuing to look at salary study in preparation for the next association contract. Modernize HR policies in our continued efforts to be a welcoming and engaging community, and committee to look at guidelines in terms of how we hire and address compression as we move along. Brownell Library, they've been thinking about sustainable library certification, and we'll continue to work on that. Brownell will be 100 in 2026. That is exciting. Good celebration, hopefully coming there. And working on new library roof as that is coming to the end of its life. In the clerk's office, looking forward to continued outreach regarding elections, dog registrations, and other services. Continue on a training program for election workers, and we are hoping to be able to offer passports right at our city clerk's office. Community development, working on the Connect the Junction transit-oriented development project. There were some boards about that in the other room. Comprehensive plan, that plan is going to be expiring in 2027, so that needs to be redone. That will likely be done now in the frame of the strategic action plan pillars. along with some changes that are happening statewide in terms of the future land use planning with the regional planning commissions, and a change to the state designations, kind of a lot of different things going on in there. And the Amtrak station. So also at the last council meeting, a contract was approved for a consultant to get that project going. So that's exciting. EJRP, we've got the Recreation Advisory Committee, will be getting kicked off soon, hoping to look at a master plan for EJRP. Also looking at a potential gym facility, as we're really pretty clear that we do not have enough facility space. So starting to look at that. And continuing to work on and expand our senior programming space, and especially, hopefully, this summer 2025, the 2 Lincoln renovation will be done, and we'll be moving back in there. So finance, continuing to explore functionality within existing software programs, especially around budgeting process and capital planning. And fire station, definitely need to take a look at that building as well in terms of needs for the future. Public Works, continuing on our annual repaving, water line and road reconstruction on Iroquois Avenue, and identification of what those sidewalks replacements will look like for each year with a percentage of that lot fund, which sidewalks we'll take a look at. And also looking at some policy improvements, including traffic calming, which I know speeding is hot topic, sadly, in the city. So hopefully can get to some improvements there. And then water quality, we have talked about part of the reason of a more robust stormwater program is we've got some needs for a full-time staff member to be able to really get that program to where it needs to be. We are not talking about the other ballot questions that you'll have on annual meeting. The council will be looking at that further on February 12th, but we do anticipate that there will be a bond vote for pump station improvements on West Maple and River Street. And then we just have in hand, I believe, a 10-year evaluation of the wastewater treatment facility, which this slide is not wrong. My brain is going to take a long time to get there. The wastewater treatment facility is now called Resource Recovery Facility, in case anyone's wondering. Okay. So next steps after today, the council is still going to be getting out there in the public for some more input and talking about the budget. So a couple of different opportunities here, including at the February 12th City Council meeting, we will have a public hearing. And so essentially today, open to, and hoping to get any input and comments today, and then on the 12th, the council can work some of those changes in time to set the budget for their final meeting on February 26th to approve what goes in the ballot. Also, like I just mentioned, on February 12th, the council will be looking at the annual meeting warning in full in terms of what else is going to be on your ballot. So in addition to a bond vote for the pump stations, for the first time in the city, we will elect the Champlain Water District member as well. That's been a position that was one and the same between the village and the town, and so now we have that position on the city side. Also, February 21st is the last day to file petitions to include articles on the ballot. March 3rd is the deadline for nominating petitions. Then we will have our informational hearing on March 25th, and then April 8th is your annual meeting day where you can come back here. Also, I'll just take this time to mention, in case I forget, you can request to have your ballot mailed to you because we will not be doing universal mailing this year. And you can actually make that request over at the clerk's office today before you leave if you would like. There's Susan. She's waving things in the air. Okay, so before we kick off the Q&A, just wanted to bring this slide back up forward for you. So again, we're talking about a 2.5% increase in the general fund side, including those, and then that's what it looks like on the utility side.
All right, thank you, Regina. So lots of information just presented. There's also, we provided information at the table, some of the overviews. And as noted previously, because we do the ballot voting now on the budget and can adjust it, this is your chance. As we also point out, there's a couple other chances as well to ask questions, and if any changes that you think need to be made, it's a great time to come up and talk about it. So I encourage that, and we can look at any of the charts that were already shown. So any topic is good. So, and again, where's the mic going to be?
Gabriella, bring it over here.
So I just asked, tell who you are for the record.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Smith, and I live on Woodstock Lane. Could you go back a slide, Regina? First, I just want to generally say, am I not talking close enough? Okay. Thank you all for the amazing work you've done and keeping our tax increase pretty reasonable. I'm wondering, I've lived here quite a while, maybe 18 years, and I'm wondering that first line, I'm wondering how relevant giving us that estimate based on a $280,000 home value is. I'm wondering if you could either present it by like 50, that like for take 50,000 and multiply it for your house, or find what might be, I don't know, the median changes constantly these days, but I can't imagine 280 is our median. So maybe something a little closer to what is like average, or I'm not a mathematician, I'll leave it to all of you. Would be, I know as someone looking at those numbers, it would be more helpful for me to maybe have it in a different format. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think there are a number of ways we can do it, and we will continue to talk about that. I mean, that is the median assessed value that we currently have, which will change shortly when we have the reappraisal complete. That will change drastically. But that said, we could reimagine other ways to do it, as you mentioned, multipliers or other. I think those would be hard to compare year to year. We'd have to go back, but absolutely we could look at that.
Thank you. All right, who else would like to speak? Thank you. Go
Hi,
ahead.
I'm Molly Bierman. I live on Jackson Street. I have a question about the items that we share with the town, so things like police and the assessments, things like that. Do we get a say in what that cost is, or is it more the town just kind of sends us a bill and the money is what it is? Or is there any kind of negotiation about how much of an increase is the town doing compared to what we'd be contributing?
So, good question. And I think the two separate boards can set different goals. So our council set a 3% goal. The police department and the assessing department are still joint with the town. And we do, through the process, are in communication back and forth between what those numbers look like throughout the process. The town is also a month ahead because we vote in April. So, the majority of the costs are pretty heavy in personnel costs, and the police department has a contract that's negotiated. I'm not sure if the chief is here. You can tell us how often that happens. If are you 3 years? Yeah. Okay. So that's a pretty big component of what that looks like. I think there certainly is room for the city side to have conversations about what that looks like from year to year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, who would like to speak next?
No, you were first. You were first. No, you were first, Christine. Christine stood up first.
All right, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi. I'm also an 18-year resident of Essex Junction, so thank you for, oh, Kristen, my name is Kristen. I was curious where in the nice little pie chart, or if you could give us an example of what the miscellaneous revenue is, and is it the CVE money? And if not, where is the CVE money that you guys get? Where does it appear in the pie chart?
Go ahead.
All right, so the miscellaneous revenue that you see is everything that we receive that is not property tax revenue. So it would be fees that the clerk's office assesses, community development, things like that. And the CVE revenue that we receive goes directly into the capital reserve fund.
So does it appear in the revenue pie chart? No.
No.
So it's not considered revenue.
It's considered revenue into a separate fund. So
Okay.
it's meant to fund capital directly.
Okay.
So if you look in the budget packets that were
Okay.
available today, in the capital budget spreadsheets, you'll see the capital reserve fund balance projection. You'll see that CVE contribution as a line in that budget.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, go ahead, George.
So first, I'll make a public service announcement. I attended a meeting on Wednesday night from the Secretary of State on civic health in the state of Vermont. I would suggest everybody, not that this is necessarily the right audience since you're here and you're civically involved, but to go out and take a look at it. And I thought I was told there's a way that you could provide input to the Secretary of State's office. I didn't see it when I went out there, but there's a lot of good work going on. There's some disturbing issues with our youth and not wanting to participate later in life. So I would just, it was a great meeting. They're going around the state, and I would encourage everybody to go out and take a look at that. So now we get down to the fun part. 8475 on the stormwater utilities. Now, is that based on the FY25 estimates? That's what I thought I remember hearing last year.
So the 8475 is based on the proposed utility budget for FY 26.
It is, okay.
Yes. The FY '25 general fund has I'm saying this off the top of my head, I could be way off. It's about $275,000 to fund the stormwater program. The FY '26 budget is in the $400,000 range. And so the 8475 rate is based on that FY '26 budget. It was 231 in FY '25.
Okay. So that's a great lead-in. Like you said, you have $230,000 in the general fund. When I looked at the detail sheet in the cost center, it showed $375,000 for FY '25. So I just wondered, is that additional cost, or is that?
Is it the side?
That was the financial sheet that was provided on January 8th.
January 8th to the council. It would have been, we provided that.
Showed $375,000 with about a $60,000 increase in salary.
She's just looking up on the
Yeah,
Excel
we're going to
there.
have to find that packet of exactly what that is.
Okay, I'll just continue.
Yeah.
The other question was, is you mentioned you're going to be bonding again, and it seems like we've been bonding quite a bit. Yet we have all these reserve funds with a ton of money. I'm just wondering why we're bonding as often as we are, considering how much capital we have set aside.
So the pump station projects are in the sanitation capital fund, which is not a well-funded fund. So there isn't money to do that. I will say for that particular bond vote, There will be a cost share with the town because some of those pump stations are not just city pump stations. So I don't have that percentage breakdown in front of me, but we'll have more information about that on February 12th.
Find the sanitation details. Speaking of that detail sheet that you're trying to look up right now, I don't know if that's the replacement or what's going to be shown, but there's only 2 years presented in that detail sheet. I think by chart you need to show at least 3, and I was wondering if that would be okay.
So you're talking specifically for stormwater budget?
Yeah, the one that I mentioned at 375.
So what that looked like in FY '24, you're asking?
I think it's expected by chart.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that for,
That's fair.
yeah, for February 12th.
And I guess the only other question I have, and I'm probably going to ask this question until I die or live here. So we have the local options tax fund. I saw where the $800,000 is being transferred to the capital reserve. I can't find anywhere where the other $225,000 is supposed to be allocated from that fund is going. Do I find it under public works for sidewalks?
It's going to stay in that lot fund held separately and be spent directly from that fund. So it won't be transferred anywhere.
So why do we do it 2 different ways?
Because we have a separate fund for capital specifically, but we don't have a sidewalk fund separately.
Line item.
Right, but that's operating, not capital. So over a certain amount is considered a capital project and wouldn't be in an operating budget.
That's fair. So now my point. I still don't understand why the lot funds aren't funneled through the general revenue page and then distributed out from there. I don't know if that's a general accepted accounting principle or if it's a best practice, but I would suggest we funnel it through the general fund in the future. So that's just a plug for that.
I can answer that too, because we did some research. So when we set this fund up, it was agreed that because we're not using lot funds for general operating purposes, that it was best to keep it in its own separate fund for better tracking, especially since it's meant for capital. On the fund, not to get too detailed, on the fund financial statement, so our audited financials that get issued every year, it technically is combined with the general fund. So basically, our auditors take the general fund and that lot fund and put them together in the consolidated statements. Yeah. Yep.
So, but speaking of that, I'm happy you mentioned that. When is you expect to be presented with the FY '24 audit, and when will it be available for consumption by the public?
So we should have it available. I'm actually working with the auditors to finish up the management discussion and analysis now. That should be done this coming week. And then the audit reports, final reports will be issued within the next couple weeks. And our auditors are presenting, I believe, on March. It's in March. I can't remember which meeting we settled on, but it'll be presented in March before annual meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, George. All right, who else would like to speak or ask a question?
Laura Bierman, Jackson Street. I just wanted to follow up on one of the things that was mentioned during the Economic Development Fund, that the Main Streets Park is going to be dramatically decreased to about a $40,000 cost as opposed to the 200 plus that was listed. Are there any plans for what that money will now be used for? Or is it too early to make a determination there?
Not specifically. The Amtrak project might end up costing more than what's allocated there, but nothing else at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. What's next?
Hi,
Go ahead, Sue.
everybody. So good to see you, and thank you. I just appreciate all your work.
I would love a little bit more of an update on the Amtrak project, because I kind of thought it was already designed and just, it was being built. And so something's happening over there, but it would be great to hear a little bit more about the time frame and what's going on, and whether the federal funding is in danger with the change in administration, or if you feel it's a done deal that we're getting it. Thanks.
Chris is making his way up, which is super fantastic. So he's going to give a better answer on what exactly is happening right now. And the federal funding, I would like to be way more confident than I am. And we are in a pre-authorization phase. We will be working through that as rapidly as we possibly can. But I think until we are on the other side of that phase, there is risk.
Yeah, so the plans that exist for the Amtrak station renovations are conceptual plans. We need to, we have a consultant on board that will be advancing this towards 30% design, and that is what's necessary to get what's called grant obligation from the Federal Railroad Administration. So the money is available through a congressionally delegated spending, which means it's sitting in a pot there. And yes, I can't guarantee that it's that is not at risk. But when in my talks with the FRA, they don't see it as likely that it'll be a problem, and we are continuing to work as quickly as we can to get the grants obligated. Now, the construction activities you see right now happening at the station, that's Amtrak making changes to the station platforms. That's their ADA platform accessibility program. It's related, but it's separate from our project, and that's not done with the same dollars.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
So I just want to say that, thank you, Chris. That's Chris Ewan, your Community Development Director.
But that's enterprise. Yes.
All right. Next question? Go right ahead.
Yes, hello, John Terborg. Been in the village or city now for 10, 12 years. I just had a quick question, probably about maybe relating to tax accounting questions. But as far as revenue related to the capital revenue that you described, how is it that you've got a lot of revenue in there from the option tax? How is it that how are those revenue sources determined as to what should be in there? For example, the CVE revenue contribution. Why is that there? What classifies that to be considered a capital as opposed to being general fund?
So the CVE revenue is by contract. So there's an agreement between CVE and the city that defines what those funds are to be used for, which is capital. So that's why it's in the capital fund.
So that was just how it was set up
Yeah.
in the day. Whereas Global Foundries, it's just, there's no agreement where it would be, it just gets into the regular.
Right. So Global Foundries pays property taxes like every other property pays. CVE is exempt because they're a nonprofit. So Global Foundries property tax revenue flows through the general fund revenue property tax line like every other property taxpayer.
All right, thank you. Well, at least we get to host this great meeting. Thank you very much for all your help.
All right, other questions? Okay, well, one of the things we wanted to try out today, and I don't have all the details, there's, who's going to give the details? We want to do that poll question. I think it's on your, you can do it on your phone.
So, yeah. So on your tables is a QR code. So I'm going to launch this poll. And once I launch that, you can go to that QR code to take the quiz questions. I just have to find it, which is, there we go.
And then for people that don't have a phone to do that, then what's their option?
So, the poll is launched, so you can, if you get in there, you can answer those questions, just 2 yes or no questions. I didn't add maybe, sorry about that. Maybe, that's purposeful. So if you don't want to do it digitally, there are comment cards on the table. You can answer the question on the table, and then there's a wooden box on the back table there where you can put your comment card right in there. Also, on those comment cards on the table, there's another generic question where if you just have any thoughts or inputs on the budget that you would like us to know, you can put that on there and put it in the box on your way out, if you'd like.
Is it working for anybody? Okay, it's not working.
Once you put it up on the screen, oh, it's not bad.
It's just coming up.
Yeah, it looked, trying it here. We gotta try new things each year.
Each year just to mess it up. I tested this 5 times. So it is, you go and see it at all? What's it saying? Nothing?
No, doesn't link.
Well, you can do it old school with the piece of paper. We're lacking the fun live presentation of what the answers are.
Nominate Marcus to go.
And if you need more, there's probably a bunch on the table where nobody's sitting over on that side. For areas where there's thicker.
Difference, because
I should have used poll, shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, do you want me to do it? There's cards on all those tables.
oh, you can do a show of hands if you want.
Yeah, would it be easier for everybody to just raise their hand?
Well, we still want the cards.
Well, yeah, we wanted to fill in, okay.
But
We can do a show. We can do a show.
Informal.
So just very informal. Let me put my glasses on. We'll just take a show of hands.
It's kind of up there. I'm just trying to get this all.
Do you approve adding an additional $110,000 to the general fund to increase the unassigned fund balance? Yays, hand up. Okay. Nays, hand up. All right. Get a sense of it. Thank you very much.
It's like I forgot there's an old school way of live.
Yep. And then, sorry, I can fit right into that very easily. The second question is the proposed FY26 general fund budget. If it was voted today, would you support it? Yays, hand up. Nays, hand up. Okay, got a sense of that. All right. Thank you very much. So we got those 2, and there's also there's a third question on there that's right in if you have any other comments or questions, which we're obviously not doing that verbally. But I encourage people to, if they do have something to write down, please do write it down and put it in the box.
And I'll add to that, if you're taking the time to fill out the card, and there's something that you appreciate being in the budget and you support specifically, let us know. If there's something that, or more than one thing, that you don't appreciate or don't support in the budget, please also let us know, so that we have something more than yes or no.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right.
So I think I have a bit of an answer to George's question about the 375,000. So I'm going to try, it's a bit confusing, but I'm going to try to answer that. So when we put the FY25 general fund budget together, we assumed that we would potentially get the stormwater utility program started in this fiscal year. And with that, if we got that started in this fiscal year, we had a higher budget amount tied to that utility. And it was actually shown in the FY25 budget kind of off to the side. So what's in the FY26 utility, not general fund, utility budget for stormwater is that higher amount for FY25 to compare to FY26. So that's the distinction there. And so we'll definitely do some work to try to make that super clear. It's just that it's the sort of stepping point and distinction between where it lived in the general fund versus now that's kind of going away and moving over to the enterprise utility. It is still possible. The hope is that the council is able to get to a place to start up this utility, and I'll turn that back to me. That's for staff, for us to get us the stuff ready so the council can do this within this fiscal year so that we can just be set up to get a person on board starting in July. So that's the hope. But to be clear, you are already paying for the stormwater program, a portion of it in FY25 through your general fund. There will not be any double dipping or charging you the same amount of money. It's the increase in the stormwater budget that you'll see through the utility as a rate if we get that started in FY25.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks.
Like only so that people online can hear.
Yeah, I was going to say, George, if you could make your comment online or at the mic so that the people that are watching online can hear you. I could hear you way up here, but anyway.
I can just repeat that and then George just flag me down if I get this wrong. So I believe the comment from George was that because that is the enterprise fund budget that he was looking at, there is no FY24 number. So there is no 3-year history to report in that budget.
Thank you, Regina. All right.
Do you want to just public comment?
Perfect. So I'm going to close my section of the moderating, and I'll hand it back to Raj for the official meeting.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. I did mention we do what we call public to be heard closer to the end of the meeting, and that is where we are now. If there are more budget questions, or if there are comments, questions, concerns about any other city topic that anyone wants to bring up now, we'd love to hear them. Don't be shy. Don't have to. See if we have someone online, and I'm not seeing them raise their hand. So if there is nothing else, I'll just close by saying we deeply appreciate you spending time with us today, sharing your thoughts. And please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, if you have comments, you can also leave them on the cards as you leave.
And I just got 2 more things, sorry. Again, if you would like a ballot mailed to you, please do visit Susan in the other side of the room before you head out. And also, I just want to let folks know, both on the town and city side, we are more proactively going to be making use of VT Alert. It's emergency alert system. So it's region-wide, so folks may be signed up for that already, but if you aren't, it'd be great to get signed up for that because we will be intending to send out any emergency announcements, road closures, or water main breaks through that system.
Great, well, if there's nothing else, we don't have items for the rest of the meeting. There's no consent items. There's no council member comments or committee report or anything else. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Great, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.